call the regular board meeting to order. All members of the board are present except ex officio student board members Kirkconnell, Maurice, and Purba, and board member Blackinger. Ms. Poulin, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to recess into executive session to discuss employment matters relating to particular persons, current litigation, and collective negotiations? Dr. Spicer, Mr. Biscaglia, all in favor? Motion carried unanimously. May I have a motion to return the regular board meeting to public session? Ms. Bullen, Mr. Bullen, all in favor? Motion carried unanimously. During the immediately preceding executive session, our board discussed authorizing a litigation appeal. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing this litigation appeal as presented? Ms. Pullen, Dr. Singh is second. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Good evening and welcome to all in attendance. Please be advised that in the event of a fire emergency and an evacuation should be necessary, an alarm will sound. Please note all marked on their cell phones and other electronic devices to silent. Thank you. Dr. Brown Hall, I turn it over to you for the school spotlight.
Thank you very much, Board President. From the Dewey Decimal System and CART catalogs in the digital age, libraries have leveraged technology to help readers locate their books. At Transit Middle School, they have developed the ultimate book recommendations flowchart to more quickly and efficiently connect readers to their literary aspirations. Please welcome Transit Middle School Principal Dr. Dan Wall and Assistant Principals Kate Perino and Travis Moore to share more.
Good evening, Dr. Brown Hall, members of the leadership team and Board of Education. It is our pleasure to shine the Transit Middle School spotlight on Amy Gorski and the incredible work she does to inspire our students in the Library Media Center. As our Library Media Specialist, Ms. Gorski collaborates closely with ELA classes and prioritizes independent reading for student engagement. This evening, you will see firsthand how students use a personalized book recommendation flowchart to an innovative tool Amy designed to help every student identify books that truly resonate with their interests and personal reading preferences.
The flowchart guides students through a series of dynamic questions regarding their interests, favorite genres, and preferred plot elements. Based on their unique responses, students are led down curated reading pathways. With hundreds of titles available, each recommendation provides a book cover and a brief synopsis, empowering students to make informed, confident choices. Because the chart is interactive, students can revisit it as their interests evolve or as they choose to dive deeper into a specific passion. The system doesn't just help them find a book, it reinforces independent decision-making and encourages students to explore genres they might never have discovered on their own.
That's awesome.
Ms. Gorski's system does more than just put books in hands. It removes the barrier of overwhelm for students who may not know where to start. By honoring each student's unique interests, she provides the choice and motivation necessary to build lifelong connection to literacy. The results of the efforts are clear. Last year, Transit recorded an incredible 17,749 checkouts.
Wow.
We added 1,700 books to our collection, including 745 new titles selected specifically with our students' needs in mind. Notably, 362 of those titles were strategically chosen to align with the Positivity Project, supporting our school-wide focus on social emotional learning and character development. It's an honor to recognize Ms. Gorski tonight for her creativity and dedication to our students. Now we'd like to share a brief video from Mr. Filipowski's team.
Awesome.
You are going to see something called 8th grade flowchart. Give it a click.
The Ultimate Book Recommendations Flowchart is a collection of titles that fit 7th and 8th grade readers, and it covers almost every single book that we have in the library, and it organizes based off of questions that they're prompted with and slowly narrows it down to a couple recommendations of what we have in our collection. So it'll narrow it down by genre, and then from genre it goes to subgenre, and then niches and tropes and themes, so it can really get them to what they're looking for.
It's really helpful because let's say you finish a book and you don't know what to read next, you can use the flowchart and it helps to find like maybe something new you want to read. It's like finding a hidden gem because you weren't looking for it, but you found it and it's like really good.
now that you've gotten that opportunity, I want to quickly show you how to find the book that you are interested in the library.
After they complete this activity, they'll have an opportunity to use the catalog to find it on the shelf or ask me for help. And then they can either check it out or put it on hold or come back later on in the school year. That's what's really great about the to-read list, is that even if they're reading 1 or 2 books right now, it can carry them not only through 8th grade, the list they're creating now can carry them all the way through high school.
I like mysteries too.
Which is interesting.
I like twists are my favorite. I love them.
Sometimes adults giving recommendations, it doesn't hold a candle to them finding a book personally or through their peers' recommendations. So we see a lot even in this activity, when a student gets to a book and another student has read it, they're pointing that out. And so then it prompts that discussion of, oh, maybe I should read it because somebody else already has and I already know that they liked it. It also provides an opportunity for students to expand on genres that they may have not have looked into on their own.
I love spending time in the library. I would usually go with my friends and then we would just discuss books, recommend books to each other. It's kind of like bringing me into a whole nother dimension. Once I finish a book, it just feels so good, especially when the book's great.
In particular, when they find a book and they come back to me and say, I loved this. This was amazing. Can I have something just like it? That's the moment as a librarian that you look forward to, that people are happy to be here. Libraries have changed as the years have gone by, and it's more of a social hub. It is the heart of a school. And I really think Transit reflects that really, really well, is a community of reading.
That is awesome. That's so awesome. Thank you very much, Ms. Corson. Thank you. Want to say anything? All right. Thank you very much for that. Oh, that's great. Dr. Wall, thank you.
Thank you.
Kate, Travis, thank you all very much. We appreciate it. I turn it back over to you, Board President.
Thank you so much. Are there any board acknowledgements this evening? Ms. Fletch?
Yes. I just wanted to acknowledge a student from North. Her name is Emma Zhang. She's a senior at Williamsville North, and she did a project titled The Future of Breast Cancer Screening, AI-Based Photoacoustic Imaging. And she won $2,400 in second place in the Regeneron contest category of biomedical engineering.
That's awesome.
Great for her. Yeah.
Awesome.
Dr. Singh?
I wanted to, last Friday, I went to the Williamsville Cup. I didn't know there was one for bowling for the boys and girls. And there were teams from East, North, and South, and they were highly competitive, but they had fun. It was fun to watch, and I wanted to congratulate the teams and the athletic teams that put it together. The other thing I wanted to acknowledge was the musical performance at South. I had a chance to go on Saturday. It was probably very cold and we didn't have a full house, which you normally do. But the play was really good. And again, I want to congratulate the team that put it together, the students and the staff.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Any other board acknowledgements? Mr. Bueland?
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge that the board met with the 3 high schools for the student forums.
Oh, yeah.
And I really enjoyed meeting with the students, and I see people nodding their heads, enjoying that too. And I think it's really enlightening to us to help understand from the student perspective. And I would encourage more students to show up to those, get a broader perspective. But I thought that was really informative for us as board members.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bueland. Other board acknowledgements? Okay, thanks everyone. We are now on item number 4, which is public expression. I call on Parliamentarian Poulin to review our public expression format.
Welcome to all who have come to observe this regular board meeting. For Policy 1510, the board allows for up to 30 minutes for this first public expression period. This is a time when we invite members of our school community to share ideas, opinions, and concerns with us. While we are here to listen carefully and we take your concerns seriously, public comment is not designed to be a discussion. Therefore, please do not expect us to respond tonight. Instead, you will receive a response by email after our meeting. Because we want to maintain mutual respect and civility, please ensure that comments are delivered in a respectful manner to the board directly. Also, under state and federal privacy laws, we are unable to entertain any comments related to employee personnel information, or any topic that may disclose information about a particular student. On these matters, we ask that you go through the appropriate administrative channels. Please note that individuals are required to sign up prior to our meeting, and each speaker is allotted 3 minutes for comments. You will be signaled at 2.5 minutes so that you may conclude your remarks. At this time, we will begin our public comments. After I call your name, please step up to the podium and again state your name. Gabrielle Baraldi.
Apparently Gabrielle is not.
Apparently Gabrielle is not here, and we have no other people signed up for public comment.
Okay, we will move on then. May I have a motion to recess the regular board meeting to conduct our budget work session? Ms. Bleckinger, Mr. Bullen, all in favor? Motion carried unanimously. I call the budget work session to order. And Dr. Brown Hall, I turn it over to you to introduce our 26-27 budget development report.
Thank you very much, Board President. So as the board knows and our community knows, budget planning actually begins the minute the board adopts the budget development calendar in October. It's not something that we just do a week or a month prior to the budget vote in May. It's a very thorough process, and we're very pleased that our Acting Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Management Services, Dr. Chris McGinley, has spent a good amount of time understanding the budget, working with the leadership team, understanding the programs, because we know that programming should drive our budget, still being fiscally responsible and making sure that we're not only responsible to our constituents, but to our taxpayers. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McGinley to introduce our preliminary right now draft budget report for the 26-27 school year. Dr. McGinley?
Great. Thank you, Dr. Brown Hall.
Absolutely.
So at this time, we're going to provide our second update to our budget development process. So in January, we saw this slide, which included those items where we'll likely see the most significant cost increases to sustain our current programs. There have been no changes, but I'll go over them again here. So on the left side with the yellow heading is the budget development for the 26-27 school year. And on the right with the blue heading are the projections of the increases seen this year and their future impact of continuing program into the 27-28 school year. It's important to note that we are not developing the right section. This is just an illustration, and these numbers could change next year when we are going through this process. Going back to the left side in yellow, we start with our current budget of $242,719,867 at the top. And below are the areas where we'll likely see the most significant cost increases to sustain our current programs. You'll note that the expenses are categorized into mandated, contractual, inflation-driven, and last is to support program. The first area is total employee salaries with an increase of $3.9 million. Health insurance increases are roughly about $2.1 million. And for BOCES, we've had some higher expenses in this area, which resulted in about a $1.6 million increase. These expenses are associated with supporting direct student programs, occupational education programs, and administrative items, including purchasing instructional technology. We do know at this time that the BOCES number will likely increase due to the general BOCES cost increases, as well as our share of the new BOCES special education building on Dick and Walden Avenue. We had our BOCES budget development meeting just yesterday, and we'll have some updated numbers for our March meeting. Lastly, we see transportation increases at about $1.1 million for a total budget increase of $8,767,108, or a 3.61%, giving us a working budget of $251,482,975. So moving to the next slide is our program enhancements. Last time we saw the addition of 2 TOSA special education coaches to support the implementation of the strategic plan and enhanced student outcomes. Since January, we're also looking to expand our 15-to-1 program. As a percentage of our current budget, these increases comprise about 0.12%. Moving to the next slide, we see program reductions. At this time, we do not have our retirement numbers built in, but we do have listed the reductions to our Learning Lab TOSAs of $525,000. When we look at the entire budget, including our continuation, enhancements, and reductions, the adjusted budget increase is $8,538,108 for a total working budget of $251,257,975, or a 3.52% increase. At the last meeting, I mentioned that we would look at revenues. But I want to begin first by our initial 26-27 revenues by looking at our 25-26 state aid budget compared to our actual state aid revenues. In the chart seen here, the first column lists the budgeted state aid, while the second column lists the actual state aid received, and the third column shows the difference. As you can see, there are some categories where the aid was higher and some where it was lower. There are many variables that cause the actual state aid figures to be different from the budgeted figures. For example, with building aid, the state may be aware of our air conditioning project and begin counting it in our aid, but we don't actually begin receiving it until our project is done and the final cost reports are submitted. There are also building aids that fall off after 15 years. Another area that our actual state aid came under budget was transportation. Every 3 years, the state recalculates the district's non-allowable pupil decimal. This decimal was recalculated just this year, and that change in decimal caused our actual state aid to be reduced. In all, we received only $76,691 more than we budgeted this year. So this is effectively right on budget when we look at all the categories combined. So the point I want to make here on this slide, and we'll return to it in a couple slides, is that we have to recognize that we have to closely examine our budgeted state aid figures to determine what our actual state aid numbers will be.
Absolutely.
So if we turn our attention to the governor's January state aid projections for 2026-27, the total state aid was estimated at $74,056,068. This compares to the $72,022,458 in the governor's run report for 25-26, representing an increase of $2,033,610. It's important to note that included in these run reports is our UPK aid. And UPK aid is not part of our general fund, and we must remove this to see what our maximum impact to our general fund will be. As you can see in the middle section of this chart here, you'll see that there's a significant increase of $1,381,240 in UPK aid for the coming school year. This UPK increase is nearly 68% of the entire $2,033,610 of our total aid increase. So after we remove the UPK aid increase, because it's not recognized in our general fund, our net maximum state aid increase prior to the adjustments that we need to make that we talked about on the previous slide is $652,370. In the bottom section of the table, we can see that the calculation of the governor's state aid estimate with UPK removed gives us a maximum state aid estimate of $70,666,068. So at the bottom of the left column in this slide, we see our maximum state aid revenue of $70,666,068. And above it, I've listed the different state aid categories, again, like we saw 2 slides ago. So what we have to do now is look at the projected state aids in the middle column, which are our actual expenses that we're projecting. After analyzing these categories, the middle column shows our adjusted state aid figures, and this reflects what we expect our actual state aid to come in next year, which is $594,650 less than what the governor's January budget proposed. So this brings our expected actual state aid total to $70,071,418. And we're going to see this total now as we go to the next slide. You're going to see that number, and this gets a little smaller here, but you're going to see that number right in the middle there in the blue box. So let's look at the left side of here. So on the left side in the yellow column is our revenues for this year. The blue column is our projected revenues for next year. And you can see that state aid figures in the top section of the chart there, breaking down the different categories, and that total of $70,071,418 boxed in blue on the previous slide, like I mentioned. If we look to the white column to the right of that, we see that the actual difference between our current budget and next year's budget in state aid revenue is only $154,884. So this is not the roughly $2 million that was conveyed in the governor's budget. But as we also saw, much of that increase was for UPK, which has no bearing on our general fund. That said, we're expecting a reduction in our pilots, which are payments in lieu of taxes. We're expecting an increase in our interest earnings and a few other minimal adjustments to our revenues. We're also looking to use an appropriated fund balance again of $3,750,000. And below that, we'll unpack the property tax levy on the next slide, but you'll see here that it's proposed at $152,950,000. So when we total up all of the revenues in the blue column, our total revenues equal $247,796,268 when compared to our total expense budget of $251,257,975. We see that we currently have a deficit of $3,461,707. So this last slide is our tax cap calculation, and it unpacks the tax levy. We always begin at the top with our prior year's tax levy. And in this case, it was $148,413,562. When we multiply that by the growth factor, which is provided to us by the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, this number is a reflection of the assessment growth of the towns that we service here in the district. This year, it was 1.0043. So this gives us a $149,051,740 figure. And when we add our pilot's budget of $2,075,000, this gives us a subtotal of $151,126,740 as you're following down. We then take and multiply this by 2%, which is the maximum tax cap CPI amount. And I just want to point out as an information item that the Northeast CPI increase was closer to 3.3%. So as we go down, we have to subtract out our pilot amounts for this coming year, which is a decrease from last year. The major reason for this is that there are some pilots expiring, and as a result, that number will decrease. So what that does is provides us with a tax levy limit of $152,640,925. We then can add in the carryover amount from the prior year of $431,651. So our actual budget to budget maximum levy increase could be $153,072,576, which is a 3.14% increase. However, when you look down to the bottom, we're proposing a levy of $152,950,000, which is under the maximum tax levy and an increase of 3.06%. So this slide here summarizes everything that we talked about. And so we have a working budget there again of the $251,275,975, or a 3.52% budget increase. And the maximum tax cap, as we saw, is $153,072,576, or a 3.14% increase. And the district estimated total New York State aid increase is $154,884, or a 0.22% increase in our state aid. This gives us a total working budget deficit, as pointed out earlier, of $3,461,707. What's important to note in this right now at the state is that we don't have retirements included in this working budget because we don't have those numbers yet. But we're not really expecting a lot of extra retirements this year. Lastly, there's always a potential that additional state aid is approved in the New York State budget. And these are things that we'll continue to closely monitor and adjust as more concrete data becomes available over the next month.
So at this time, I want to, Dr. McGinley, thank you very much for that thorough explanation and the details that were provided to our Board of Education and our community. So this time I will turn it back over to Board President to open it up for questioning.
So are there any questions from the board? Dr. Singh?
Thank you, Dr. McGinley, for presentation. I just had one question. Like in last year in 25-26, the actual was higher than the projected, like by $76,000. And this time we're projecting that the actual will be less than projected by $500,000. Is that we expect more money to come in later, or?
Is that of the state aid projections?
Yes.
Yeah.
6 and 8.
Right now, we're pretty confident in those numbers. We've done a lot of projections and digging into those numbers. So right now, those appear to be somewhat of our maximum state aid numbers that we're expecting. But certainly, as if other information becomes available or they increase the state aid, then we would make those adjustments.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Poulin?
Yes, noting that nearly $3.5 million deficit, can you talk a little bit about what our contingencies are to match that deficit? I understand we might get more state aid, we might have some retirements, but it's not going to meet 3.5 million in either case, unless there's a great windfall.
So if you don't mind. So what we have to do is really examine our budget, right? So we know what our revenues are. We know how limited our revenues are. So we have to look at managing our expenses and what that will entail. So we have been, and under the direction of both Dr. McGinley and Dr. Balin, looking at all of our programming, all of our supplies, all of our contracts to make sure that we're maximizing and we're getting the biggest bang for our buck with every dollar we spend. So that is a very thorough process we're doing, and also auditing all the staff that we have to make sure they're accounted for correctly. We do that annually to see if there's any corrections that need to be made. It's just a very thorough process we have to do. I do want to talk about one point that Dr. McGinley made about the retirements and why we don't anticipate a high number of retirements. So with settling a new teacher's contract, one thing we realize is that there will be a teacher shortage, especially in high needs areas. So there is no longer a retirement incentive in our contract. We value the expertise and knowledge many of our senior and experienced teachers have, and we need them to stick around. And so that's why, with the board's approval, we look to increase the salary at those later years and to make sure that our teachers are staying with us because we value that expertise. So that's why we don't anticipate a lot of retirements. But this is a time that requires a lot of belt tightening and reviewing every nook and cranny in our budget to try to reduce that amount.
Thank you, Mr. Manna.
Thank you. Dr. McGinley, thank you as always. I had a couple comments and a couple questions. So, I went and reviewed the last 5 budgets. And in 4 of the last 5 budgets, it showed a working deficit at this March meeting. Just want to stress that, nobody here is, and while we are concerned, there's no panic button being pressed or even considered. The last 2 years at this March budget presentation, 1 year was almost a $2.4 million initial working deficit. Last year was $2.2 million initial working deficit. Just to give a little bit of historical, precedence of what we talk about at this March meeting. So really, I had 2 questions. When your chart shows that the pilot program from the IDA is being reduced by about $500,000, it would seem to me, and you put that as a revenue, but it seemed to me like that would be a good thing because now they're coming off that reduced pilot and going on to the full taxes. So how did you come up with that? We're losing $500,000 from the reduced pilots, but yet not accounting it, if you did, on how it would just roll into the regular tax revenue then. Or is that not the right question?
So you're correct in that if the pilots are reduced, it does go into the regular tax roll. And so it is recognized now in the revenue in that tax levy.
And you still think it's still $500,000 that we're going to be minus in income or in revenue? Okay.
Yes, for the pilots.
Thank you. My next question is, can you refresh my memory on the transportation? I mean, we talk about this, it seems like every other meeting, on the increase from last year to the future year, or this current year to next year, minus what we did not get from the state and how much additional we will pay in transportation. Do you have that number? I thought it was $1 million extra in just in transportation, then minus several $100,000 less in state aid.
Right. Our transportation.
I'm not trying to,
No, it's okay. I'm just going back to review the number. Our transportation increases is right about 1.1 million. It increases.
But I thought we had, I thought one of your charts showed that our transportation aid came in at less than what we anticipated.
It did.
It did. So that adds on to the 1.1. I'm just trying to get to the point sloppily that transportation is going up so much. It's not as fast as salary or benefits, but it is just a tremendous cost driver.
It is. And we do get reimbursed. So just to circle back to your point, we do get reimbursed for transportation. It's a complex formula that they use to get reimbursed for transportation. And there is a percentage or a number that we have to indicate to the state. And Chris can explain it better. However, that number has changed, and that allowed for a reduction in the percentage of reimbursement for transportation that we get. Now, Chris is going to be examining in the month of March 3 days, because if we're able to submit a new number, it may increase our transportation aid in the future, but it's a percentage that the state looks at, and that's how they decide our reimbursement for our district.
And it's not just transportation, transporting the same students. It's newer students and special education.
Right. And that's why I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, thank you. That's why I brought it up.
No, absolutely. And because a lot of individuals don't realize it's not just about transporting our students to and from our 13 schools. We transport students to private parochial schools. We transport students out of district that may need special education services that we are not able to provide in district or at Erie Wombosis. We have students going as far as Orleans Niagara Bosis. We're responsible for that. We're responsible for transporting students who are classified as McKinney-Vento as far as Hamburg and Lockport. We are responsible for all of that. So it's not just transporting our students to our 13 schools. We transport a great deal of students out of the district and far distances. You can add to that if you want, Dr. McGinley.
Yeah, it's 75 different schools.
75.
Transporting to, and you're about 9,000 kids on a daily that we're transporting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Scalia.
Correct me if I'm wrong, are most schools are they getting their full amount of foundational aid this year? Is it back to
It was 461 districts are getting the 1% minimal increase.
We're one of them.
And we are one of them.
So that's why, and thank you very much for that, not to interrupt your question. However, that's why it's so important when we talk about advocacy and working with our legislators to bring about increased insight about what is needed in school districts, because that 1% increase really isn't actually 1%, but it's eaten up with simply health insurance increases, right? So that money doesn't go very far. So that's why when Mr. Manna talked about it this time in previous years, we did show a deficit, but we had some reassurances that we would see increase in what the governor is giving us. We don't have those assurances this year or the years moving forward. So that's why we have to just really, really play it close to the vest this year and really look at our expenses very tightly. If you want to add to that, Dr. McGinley?
That's correct.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I'm sorry, back to Mr. Biscaglia.
Biscaglia,
Sir.
had something
In
else?
terms of electric buses, like, I mean,
So we are going to, and it got rescheduled because it was on a snow day.
Right.
But myself, Dr. McGinley, and Vice President Manna are actually going to a seminar, a workshop on electric buses for March 10th, right? And so we're going to that. All districts and their superintendents and board members, a board member and their assistant superintendent of finance were invited to this seminar where we'll all be together and able to ask those questions, because we also know that in many areas of the state, the electric companies cannot provide enough power for these buses. I'm sorry.
no, I was just asking that because those are things that, as we talked before, advocating and discussing with legislators. I mean, those are things that the board brings up, many boards, not just ours,
Correct.
throughout the state. I mean, it's a difficult transition. Puts pressure on a lot of boards and finances and things like that for the future. So
Correctly. And when we hear that we transport to 75 different schools and programs, you know, we have to make sure that those buses not only get students there, but are able to return. And we know what electric buses and electric batteries and cars do in the wintertime. We've had some brutal winters.
yeah, when it's -5 degrees, they might not start.
They'll start, they just won't run that long.
You're right.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? DSP, I believe I saw your hand earlier.
Just to make sure I'm communicating accurately to students, as of tonight's meeting, the current Learning Lab model is being removed through the budget, and the replacement supports are still under development. If my understanding is incorrect, I'm happy to be corrected.
Nope, you're correct.
Thank you.
Yes, Salil.
So I know the topic of like board member compensation was brought up a while ago, and for this year at least, it was put on side, but it would affect this very budget, correct?
Next year's.
Okay.
And again, we had one meeting. We have another meeting scheduled end of February 24th, I think. And you know, the committee asked a lot of questions, wants some information, and there's no rush. We're going to meet once a month probably, and at some point they'll come up with a recommendation, but it would not be this budgeted year.
I also don't know that it would be next year's either.
Depending on the calendar, the budget, is a whole bunch of variables. So Dr. Spicer, you're right. Like I said, it's something that's being looked at, and we should look at it. You know, just because something's been the same way for years doesn't mean we don't look at things. And just to change the topic to electric buses, the zero emission buses.
Zero emission buses.
What board member Biscaglia said, it's you know, the same thing. Because the other question is, budget wise, we couldn't afford to pay the increase what STA would charge us, or districts that have to buy the buses, who do their own transportation, would have to bond that money to a public vote. And if the voters turned it down, then what would they do? I think the zero emission bus, it's a great theory, and I'm all for it, but there has to be a federal component as far as aid, a state component, and the people pushing this are the zero emission industrial complex that they say that everybody's ready to roll in 2030 or whenever they push the new date out. So sorry to
That's okay. I was actually at the virtual legislative event that NYSBA put on, and they talked about the zero emission buses. And one of the things that that the New York State Education Department representatives that were at that meeting said there is a waiver, and it is available on the New York State Education Department's website. And one of the things that if your constituents don't pass the bond to buy a bus, you get so many points towards this waiver, and that is part of the waiver process. But there are a number of different things that happen in order to do that. I haven't looked at the waiver specifically, but that's just information I wanted to share. Mr. Buellin.
So I have a question. If we were to rely just on retirements, which I know we're not going to do because we don't know what the number is and what it is, but what number would that be to make a balanced budget? Can you answer that? I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, that's hard.
Would it be 10? Would it be 15? I mean, I don't know. That's why.
Yeah, that, and I don't know. 10 seems low. I don't know either because I think it's preliminary. I think it would be too preliminary to answer that question.
Okay.
But it's not too preliminary to realize that we won't reach it.
That's what I figured.
Right.
Yeah. But I was just. I guess I have a follow up.
Please.
Since I was thinking about it. In your guesstimation, what is the number if you can? What do you think the number of retirements will be? If just
We know that the retirement incentive prior required a February 1st retirement notification. Right now, we require a March 1st retirement notification. And I think so far we've only received 9. Our executive director of human resources is putting her hands up, 9 retirements. But we have to make sure we realize those 9 aren't true 9 retirements. The learning laptosas that are being cut will absorb those positions. So it will be a net, right? So we have to figure that out also.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other budget questions from the board? Okay. We will now have our public forum for the 2026-2027 budget only. Anyone wishing to address the board regarding the budget may make your way to the podium at this time. And if you could please state your name.
Sure. James Hanley. Just a quick question, really on the first slide. Is it all built off of last year's budget, or does it actually include projected actuals for last year? Because there can be a big difference. If you're just building off deltas off of a budget, you could every year have a $5 million carryover unless you take that into account. That's my only question.
Can you ask it again? I just want to make sure I understood it. Can you ask it again? Did you understand it, Chris? Because I don't know that I did.
Well, ask it one more time. So
Please.
I'm hearing it. I thought I did, but
Yeah, the first slide is starting off with 242, I think was $1 million, or yes, $242 million as the started budget of last year or this current year, and then you have deltas you're adding to it for projections for next year's. So, are those deltas taking into account what the actuals are projected to be for this year? So, in other words, the $2 million for the one category already takes into account that the previous budget is maybe got a surplus.
I see what you're saying. So when we look at do you mind? I know if you look at the line of employee salaries, you see how it's 3.944. That's because we've taken into account what the actual expenditure in employee salaries were, and then we adjusted that amount. Had we kept it and just kept increasing from the projected budget of last year, that would have been much higher. So I see what you're saying now, but it is actuals at this point in time projected out.
Okay.
Yes.
And I can understand for anything that's contractual, that's easy to do as a delta. But there are a lot of things that are expenses, like for library books and stuff like that, maybe you don't buy as many books as you thought you were going to buy, but you're projecting you're going to buy the same number of books next year or more. So that if you're not taking into account the underspend, you're just going to keep building on a surplus
You're
every
right.
year.
And
So I was
library
just
books, we
wondering
buy even more than we're very proud of that. But that's a good point. But we do that, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for that. And thank you for coming all the time and asking questions. We appreciate that too, your participation.
Okay, was there anyone else that would like to speak regarding the budget only? It's not budget though.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We already had public expression, just so you know, earlier. There's a second public expression at the end of the meeting. This is for budget only. Okay. So I don't see anyone else. May I have a motion to adjourn the budget work session? Dr. Singh, Ms. Bleckinger, all in favor? Motion carried unanimously. And so now, Dr. Brown Hall, I turn it back over to you for your superintendent's
Oh,
report,
absolutely.
items 6A and 6B.
I felt like I'd done so much talking already, right? More to come. Thank you very much, Board President. We'll begin with the community update for Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. So what I wanted to show is, and I asked Dr. McGinley to prepare 3 slides, and these 3 slides are important because what I wanted to show is that from the time of 2015, 2016 to the time of current day, 25, 26, our enrollment in the district has gone down by 3.9%, right? So when you look at that number, it's approximately 400 students. And the question came up, how is that possible that we're going down in enrollment? However, we are increasing, and we've increased over that same amount of time, 31% of our teaching force. So that question always comes up. And I want to remind our board members and our community members that we have done a great job with identifying needs for our students and the supports we need to put in place for our students' mental health. That's why that number has increased. So you will see that even though our enrollment numbers have gone down, we've had an increase in related services by 16.9% of teachers, an increase in ENL teachers by 270%, and an increase and our special education teachers by 59.8% of teachers. So even though the number of students that we service has decreased by approximately 400, the amount of mandated services that we provide for our students has increased. And you can see, and I see people taking pictures of this. It's actually in the community update, Patty. So you can have it. All right. So we want to show that that's why our budget, and we have to be very, very mindful of our budget, programs that we have to keep because they're mandated, programs that we can be a little bit more flexible with because we have mandated services that we have to provide for our students because we've done such a great job realizing the need of our students in the area of social emotional learning and student supports.
Before you move on,
Please.
Ms. Fletch had a question.
I think the first 3 are really self-explanatory for people, but can you just, the green, what is related services?
Like teacher assistants, teacher aides, right? So when we have one-to-one teacher aides for some of our students that require it, so we've had an increase in that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, no, thank you. I wanted to jump to one of the things that you've heard prior that we've discussed at community forums, we've discussed at PTA meetings, and we've discussed at the board table. So we know that our elementary air conditioning project is going on right now. In between our elementary air conditioning project and other air conditioning projects, we are going to look at having a modernization project. And so what we did, Dr. McGinley surveyed our building principals to see what were some of the things that were necessary to really modernize our buildings. We have some areas in many of our buildings that haven't been touched since the buildings have been built. And so these are some of the common things that the modernization program would update. Some of our hallways. So remove some of the dated tiles and finishes, apply fresh paint to improve the appearance and durability, provide new consistent flooring throughout the hallways, lavatories. And we hear this not only from staff, but from students also. So new tile and more neutral color palettes, updated fixtures, including touchless sinks and hand dryers, and improved privacy panels, particularly between urinals. Some other areas are looking at our libraries, modernize the overall look and feel, create more flexible and adaptable spaces, new carpeting, and add air conditioning in those areas that don't have it, especially in our middle schools that will be the next phase of air conditioning. If we're doing modernization and we're taking apart some parts of the building, it's important that we structure them and get them ready for air conditioning where we can. In some of our cafeterias, enhance lighting and technology to allow the space to be used more flexibly, reduce hard services to improve acoustics, and add air conditioning also. So these are the things that we are absolutely looking at when we look at a district modernization project that will affect every school building in our district. Jumping to homework and grading. This was one of the topics from the student forums with the Board of Education that came up, I think, at every school. And so they want to know, because we've had our homework and grading committee under the direction of our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Bellin, and Dr. Bellin has presented the last 3 years about the homework and grading and the different phases that we've gone through and the work of that committee. So what we're looking to accomplish with our homework and grading committee is consistency with autonomy. We're not looking to reduce the amount of autonomy our teachers have, but we're looking to provide consistency district-wide. Balancing of assignment time and frequency. It's really important that we take that into consideration. And the assignment of homework over school breaks. We all know as adults, we need time to decompress. Our students do too over our school breaks. So not assigning too much work or work that is not, extremely important over those school breaks. And we realize that different levels require a different amount of homework. So for example, AP classes will require more assignments and work outside of the class. We do realize that. But we also realize that homework can be used as a pre-assessment, as a formative assessment, or as purposeful independent practice. It should increase student engagement, motivation, and ownership of students' own learning by making the learning process visible to students, teachers, and parents. And lastly, grading. All grading practices should reflect student achievement only, and that non-academic attributes or biases, example, behaviors, good or bad, should not influence academic grades. So these are the things we're still working on with our homework and grading committee to make sure that we're following this consistently across our district. So I want to highlight this, and we've spoke about it before. We have 2 exciting presentations coming up at the Board of Education meetings in April and May, an artificial intelligence presentation on what Williamsville is doing for artificial intelligence, what professional learning has been allowed, what we expect of students with artificial learning, and how some of our teachers are using it to enhance instruction in the classroom. And then in May, a special education presentation. We know that 3 years ago now, the Western New York Education Service Council came, we asked them to come in, and they did a 6-month study on our special education work in our district. They had findings and recommendations. In May, we will provide you an update on where we are at with many of those recommendations and the investment that we have put into special education in our district to make sure that we are meeting those recommendations. Our high school musicals. Dr. Singh, you're absolutely correct. I went to Williamsville South to see Something Rotten, and many people know, it's no secret, right? I'm a big musical theater fan. And these shows that we produce here in the district are top notch, just very high caliber. I saw Something Rotten on Broadway, and this was a direct mirror of that. Our students were absolutely phenomenal. They owned their roles. It was so hilarious too, and the music was phenomenal. I'm looking forward to SpongeBob the Musical. I saw that one on Broadway also because my younger son wanted to see it. And I just saw Into the Woods 2 years ago at Shays. It was a special engagement because Montego Glover was in it. So I'm looking forward to seeing that also. So I just can't wait. I love these musicals. Our BOE candidates. So our Board of Education candidate packets are available through our district clerk, Lynn Carey. Our student Board of Education packets are available in each high school's main office and on the district website. So very similar to how our Board of Education members follow a process to be elected to the board, our student board members also follow a process to be elected to their student board member seats. In this here, we've provided the student board member timeline. So any student that is interested, it will be in the community update, and it's also on the district website, the timeline you must follow in order to be elected to the student board member seat. Alumni associations. So our alumni associations are beginning to schedule their first meetings, and Williamsville North, I believe, has their first meeting this Wednesday at 7 p.m. virtually. And then I know we just received the date for Williamsville East to hold their meeting, and Ms. Gainey at Williamsville South is structuring the date of that virtual meeting also. So it's a very exciting time to get our alumni associations at our high schools up and running, and we will have those dates posted on our website. And anyone that filled out the QR code to be added to the alumni list will receive notification on when those virtual meetings will be held. Winter weather, so emergency closing days. And I know this is a question that came up at some of the student forums. Also, I'll jump to bullets 2 and 3 first. Please make sure all of our students are prepared for the elements each day. We've had some very cold start to our mornings, and Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow, meaning 6 more weeks of winter. We are very fortunate. Today, the temperature got up to 41 degrees. We are very fortunate today. But yesterday, turn to your neighbor and say, yesterday? But yesterday was a very bitter cold day. Emergency closing days. We have 4 built into the calendar this year, and in the proposed calendar we have for next year, we have 4 also built into the calendar. So we want to make sure that we're only closing school when it is absolutely necessary for snow or cold. And because the new law has been passed, we want to make sure we're saving some emergency closing days, because if the temperature reaches a certain degree in the middle of a classroom, above 3 feet in the middle of the from the window, no, from the floor to the middle, we then have to remove those students also. So we want to make sure we're saving at least one of the emergency closing days if we can. We do have one saved right now, but we're at the beginning of February. We know February can bring some cold days about. We will never sacrifice student safety for saving of emergency closing days, right? We will always do what's in the best interest of students, and then we will work it out through the state education department and the governor's office after that. Our draft calendar, that is the next item, but the draft calendar for the 26-27 school year is being presented tonight. Our first day of school is scheduled for Tuesday, September 8th, after Labor Day. 1 week for winter recess next year. So the last 2 years, I know we've had 2 weeks. This year, we will only have 1 week for winter recess. Spring recess is scheduled for March 26th to April 2nd, and the last day of school is scheduled for June 24th, 2027. So comment period will be open through March 6th. If you have any comments, please email them to contact@williamsvillek12.org, and the 26-27 draft calendar is in the agenda right now. Calendar updates. February is Black History Month. Community information and events are available in the district calendar. Midwinter recess begins next week. Monday is President's Day. Tuesday is Asian Lunar New Year. Then the rest of the week we have off because of midwinter recess. So this Friday is the last day of school until Monday, February 23rd. Our next community forum will take place on March 24th following the budget work session. It will start approximately at 6:45 or 7 o'clock, around that time, Board President. Is that accurate?
That's usually when it starts.
Awesome. And this is a town hall style meeting. It will give students, parents, residents, and staff members a chance to talk about any education-related issue they wish. School board members and I will be on hand to listen, answer questions, and discuss the latest topics impacting Williamsville schools and public education. That is a community update for Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. What questions might you have, board members?
Student board member, Salil Krakanis.
I know that you had like a presentation plan for artificial intelligence and special education for this spring. Do you know for like the grading committee? I know there's no like date yet, but some sort of like timeline for when they're going to have some sort of statement or presentation out by?
The grading committee, Dr. Bellin does a presentation every August on the work of the grading and homework committee that past year and the different phases we are at. So Dr. Bellin does that presentation in August.
So will there be one this upcoming August?
Yes, there will. Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Mr. Biscaglia?
It just came up when I was thinking about this. With the homework and grading, you mentioned, being, same guidelines or being, consistent through schools, but having teachers have autonomy, and that I can't remember, so I apologize from August. I know we weren't quite yet at the grading policies, but that would, I mean, would it be tending towards autonomy and grading or more towards, how
The autonomy is
it's
more
hard to,
in homework assignments, right?
yes.
So if, Mr. Bulin teaches social studies, I teach social studies, we're not saying the assignments have to be exact, right? But if you give a test, if I give a test, Mr. Bulin gives a test, I'm not going to count tests as 10% of your grade. He counts them as 90% of your grade, right? That's just not consistent. So we're looking at consistency with autonomy, right? We're not saying homework has to be exact. We're not saying the classes must mirror each other, right? They have to be similar, but we're asking that the grading practices be the same also. So we're not playing grading roulette with our students.
Yeah, so that would include like late policies, things like that as well? Or I know that's in the future thinking, but.
Right. And that's something we'll be working on too, right?
Any other questions regarding the community update? Okay, I believe it's still your turn though, Dr.
Well, the next item was about the draft calendar.
Oh,
but
you
we
already
included
covered
that
that.
in the community update. Yes.
Perfect.
Oh,
Mr. Biscaglia.
I have a question about the calendar. I was going to ask when you brought it up. When I was looking at it earlier, I saw 180 student days, but you said we have 4 built-in days for, emergency closings.
Correct.
How does that work? So the public
Absolutely.
knows? 'Cause
And I'm so glad you asked that because yeah, we haven't explained this for a couple of years, but I'm glad you asked that. In education law, we are allowed to use 4 superintendent conference days and count of our total days. So if we use the first 3 days that teachers report as of 3 of those days, and we have several superintendent conference days in the calendar because we have more culture and religious holidays than many of the other districts, we reach our 4 limit. And so those 4 days added to the 180 student days actually gives us 184 days we can claim. And so now we have 4 days over the 180 that will act as emergency closing days.
And then is there any, say they go over, is there any, what's the word I'm looking for? You can ask the state for certain days back if it's in between September 1st and June 30th, like if you
Or
run
if
out
there's
like
state of emergency.
If there's a state of emergency. So I want to do 2 answers here. If you look at the bottom of the calendar, it speaks about if we go over on our emergency closing days, the days that we must start taking back, and we start taking days back from vacation, some of the breaks, right? We have to start taking days backwards from some of the breaks. However, if there is a declared state of emergency from the governor, for example, we're in one right now from January 21st to February 22nd. Once you've exhausted all your emergency closing days, if you need to use more, you then have to fill out a special form that would need approval from the state education department, and you attach the emergency order from the governor explaining that this falls under their emergency closing and that you will need additional days or whatever additional days you use, you are looking to get those back. Because any day over your allotted emergency closing days, you can have withheld 1/187th of your foundation aid. However, if you get approval of using those days during an emergency closing day, during a time that the governor has issued an executive order, once that is approved, those days do not count against you. But they do an analysis of it. So say we're the only district that closed, right? We went over our days and Clarence and Amherst and Sweet Home all stayed open. It's not likely that would be approved, right? But if it's regional and we can show that it was indeed an emergency closing day, that day will be approved.
Can I ask a question off of that?
Please.
You've turned in that form. What is it? It's not a rubber stamp from the state that says we automatically accepted.
It's not.
It's an 80-20 thing, or is it like a?
I've never done it.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Just curious.
No, yeah. Question though.
I just want to thank you. I just think it's important public kind of knows how those days are
Absolutely.
Calculated.
You're very right.
All right, so any other questions about the calendar before we move on? Okay, we are now on item 7A. I believe all 3 of our student board members are going to provide a report. Student board member Giselle Maurice, representing North, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you. Just last Friday, we had our second Spartan Read at Dodge Elementary. If you recall, our first was at Higham Elementary, where any athlete, spring, winter, fall, could volunteer to read books to elementary school students. So at Dodge, you have books about teamwork and courage, and I was with kindergartners and first graders. It's definitely a great experience, and also got good bonding experience for the athletes. Definitely building communities. We also had opportunities for the kids to ask us questions about sports or about life in high school. And definitely a very positive thing that our sports teams are doing. Today we had I believe our fourth Be Good, Do Good Tuesday. Since Valentine's Day is on Saturday, we had Valentine's Day card making in all the cafeterias, and students were encouraged to make cards for their friends or teachers and deliver them in school. Also on Friday, we have our Stuco Bingo, which is definitely a fan favorite. Every so often we'll have bingo where every time the bell rings for class to start, someone in the main office will announce bingo numbers, and students will get a bingo board at the beginning of the school day, and winners will receive different prizes. I'm not sure what this week is, or this month is, but usually it's hotspot bucks or some type of incentive. The Taste of North is coming back to North for a lot of years. I honestly, since I've been a freshman, we've had it, but I believe it's been going on for at least 10 years. On March 23rd, and we have a new culinary champion contest where each team or student is able to enter their food for the contest and receive a prize based off of their food. Moving on to athletics, this past month we had 5 school records broken in our track and field team, which is outstanding. Michael Gregoire breaks the school record for the 1500 race walk. Josh Newman breaks a 46-year-old school record in shot put. The girls' 4x2 school record is broken by Kaylin Zingali, Chloe Gemmer, Milia Kopchenko, and Lily Bauer. And going off Lily Bauer, she's now first in all of New York State for the 55-meter. Wow. Miss Fletch's son, Drew Fletch, just reached 100 career wins in wrestling matches.
Oh.
And so Syracuse just received the Buffalo Sabres High School Player of the Month award for hockey. And we had our first NCAA signing day on the 4th. And Kaylee Garver just signed for Duville for D2 acro and tumbling.
Very nice.
We just received our all Western New York Fall Scholar athlete winners. For soccer, we had Allie Bazankin. For boys golf, Cameron Fleming. For cheerleading, Giselle Maurice. For girls volleyball, Abigail Murphy. Girls tennis, Samantha Ryu. And we had 59 honorable mentions on top of that. And for those that don't know, for all Western New York Fall Scholar athletes, you have a 90 or greater average for the past 6 semesters and be a significant player on your sports team and be a senior.
That's awesome.
So congratulations to our 5 winners and our 59 honorable mentions.
Absolutely.
And just lastly, a great event that we guys have every year is our post prom, where seniors are able to gather at the Apex at the chapel, and they receive different prizes and do different games. We usually have blackjack or some type of games, and every year they receive amazing prizes, like people win TVs, microwaves, things for college. So if you'd like to learn more about that, follow WN Post Prom 26 on Instagram, and you can also learn more about the senior yard signs and banners.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. And we will move on now to DSP representing South High School.
Good evening, everybody. Here's my update on what's happening at South. First, our seniors had the day of service. I'll go through the pictures slowly as I talk about it. On January 23rd, during midterm week, our seniors participated in a massive day of service organized through their government classes. Students researched and selected placements across 11 different sites, including Ronald McDonald House, Feedmore, Williamsville, New York, and our own district elementary schools. Each senior earned 6 hours of community service, focusing on direct impact and reflection. It was a great way to see your students giving back to Williamsville and the greater Western New York area.
Was that you, DSP?
Where? Yeah.
Awesome.
Actually in the room with a teacher that used to be a assistant teacher to a regular teacher, and now she's her own independent teacher at Mill.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
All right, then moving into our arts and culture. The The South Drama Club just finished an incredible run of the musical Something Rotten this past weekend. A highlight of our production was a special preview performance the cast and the pit orchestra gave for students and staff from Forest and Maple West Elementary. Additionally, here's some of the pictures. The Culture and Diversity Club recently held a successful and a fundraiser in our hallways for any students looking to show off their own skills. Also, the informational meeting for Williamsville South Got Talent variety show is actually happening today, right after school in room 216. Hopefully I can provide some pictures of that for the next board meeting. Oh, here's some of the designs. Regarding student life, we head into the Valentine's Day soon. Our student government is keeping traditions alive by selling hugs, juice drinks. Students can buy these to be delivered to their friends, teachers, or staff members later this week to spread some positive energy around the building. Finally, in our athletics, varsity hockey had a huge bounce back win this weekend, defeating Iroquois Alden 10-4. Jack Szymanski tied a school record with 7 points in a single game. Indoor track is heading to state sectionals on February 28th. And congratulations to Thomas Gervasi, Cameron Houston, Dylan Saunders, Paul Tu, and Amari West for qualifying. And then our major honors is huge congratulations to Angelina Spersky for being named Girls Volleyball Player of the Year, and to her coach, Mr. Sproul, for being named Coach of the Year.
Oh, awesome.
That concludes my report for South. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we'll move on to Salil Kaharnis, representing East.
Okay, so just to start off, here's some pictures from some of our new clubs at Williamsville East. Well, this was Black Student Association led by Mrs. Azraeli Brown, and founding club members include Kyrie Smith, Giselle Tour, Tracy Madzingwa, Madeline Price, Rowan Price, and Wafa Bata. They have some upcoming projects such as designing t-shirts, preparing for a visit from Todd Roach, who's a member of the education team at the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. And they had a meeting recently. And this is from Latino Club, which kicked off in November, but they had basically an event where all members could come and learn about Latino culture. And they were just playing games and eating delicious food cooked by their very own club members. And then there was a used book sale setup where students from East have now been helping Maple East with their used book sale for 3 years now. And they actually donated books and it counted as individual action for the seniors. So they just go to East and spend about 3 to 4 hours helping PTA help set up for the sale. This year we had 2 members from book club and 3 seniors helping out. So that was a great opportunity for them. Now, as for the other updates at our school, on January 31st, Science Olympiad had its regional competition at Buffalo State University. Even though it was a cold day with horrible weather conditions, East managed to persevere. And basically at this event, students participate in test events where they study from November till January, and build events where they build different things based on spec sheets provided for them. And East placed second overall, and Williamsville East A team will be going to Scioto States at Lemoyne College in Syracuse on March 20th. Then this past Saturday, February 2nd, was our FBLA spring district meeting at East. It was in the morning for about 3 hours where state officer candidates would come and take the state officer exam, as well as students who are participating in events could take mock practice exams to basically get more prepared for the actual state conference, which is happening in April. Tomorrow is Williamsville East Unity and Diversity Festival, which is probably a big highlight as the whole school day is being shortened, as we have 20-minute classes and 9th period is being cut entirely. So the assembly should be starting at 11:20, I believe, and all students can come watch it, as students have been, similar to Science Olympiad, been practicing and performing since beginning of September, October. And they had, I remember, dress rehearsals yesterday till 7 o'clock. That's how dedicated they are, because it's been such a larger performance this year. They had to really, spend a lot of time preparing for it. And I'm sure it's going to go great. And I'll be sure to add pictures for next meetings.
Thank you.
Board meeting, to just show you all what it's like. From February 23rd to March 20th, students in Mrs. Morrow's entrepreneurship class will be opening their class businesses in the Commons Cafe booth. So there's basically 2 classes, and within our cafeteria in the corner, we have Commons Cafe. From February 23rd to March 6th, there will be Loops and Lemons, which is the first class, where they'll be featuring hot pretzels bites with toppings, hot chocolate with toppings, and lemonade. And then March 9th to March 20th will be Entrepanini, where they'll be selling, entrepaninis and other sandwich goods.
Awesome.
And all the money that the students raise will be used to donate for charities of their choosing. So it's just a great event because it's friendly competition, and they always ask students what they want to eat, because I know not everyone's a fan of school lunch sometimes. As for music, ECMEA results came out, and for junior high, we had 8 students qualify for chorus and 11 students for band/orchestra. And for senior high, we had 5 students qualify from chorus and 19 from band/orchestra and 7 for jazz.
Awesome.
And this will be taking place in March, where students will travel there and perform with students from other districts, such as like Clarence, Lancaster, in the local area. So that's a great opportunity for them, and I'd like to congratulate everyone who made it. Stuco is actually having its own Valentine's Day sale this week. There is a admirer message pre-sale on Thursday, February 12th, where you can send a personalized message with 1 carnation for $3, which will be delivered to your friend's homeroom on Friday, the 13th. And it guarantees that your friends will get a carnation, and it can be given anonymously too. And it's sold in the Commons only on Thursday, because they're projecting it to really, sell quickly. And on Friday, they're also having a sale in the Commons after school, but the message you'll have to purchase it on Thursday. And the carnations are available in red, white, pink, purple, and hot pink. And finally, for the 100th day of school on Wednesday, February 25th, they're having a senior dress-up day. 9th, 10th, and 11th graders are having pajama day, as well as there will be a photo booth in the Common. And they promised 100 giveaways for the 100th day. So let's see how that goes.
So let's see how that goes.
Thanks to all 3 of you for those reports. Again, I'm always impressed to hear all the activities going on at all 3 of our high schools. So thank you for sharing all that with us and with the community. We are now on item 7B, which is our events. Our next board compensation committee is on February 24th. And as Mr. Manis spoke about earlier, it's going to be 1 meeting at a time and about 1 meeting a month. Our next policy committee meeting will be in March. Our community forum, as mentioned earlier, will be March 24th. That's in the KC Middle School cafeteria after our budget work session. Our conversations with staff will be in April, with details still to be determined. And as we already spoke about as well, our student forums were held at all 3 high schools on January 28th. Our school visits this month, we had several board members visit Maple East, Maple West, and Country Parkway on February 3rd. We were able to observe facilities and instruction and learn about some of the school initiatives. Moving on to items 7C and 7D, the board candidate information and vote board candidate information and vote information items are in board docs. Are there any questions from any board members on that information? Okay. 7E and 7F is ECSB and NISBA items, and 7G liaison assignments are all also in board docs. Item 7H, we received correspondence from community members on school inclusion, facilities employment, access to district property, and transportation policy. 7I, our nominations for Erie One BOCES Board of Education must be received on or before March 24th, And our nominations for the Erie One BOCES board will be on our March 10th meeting agenda. Are there any board member questions or comments related to any of those items? Yes, DSP.
Where the Erie One BOCES call for nominations, who exactly is getting nominated?
We receive nominations usually by email or in the mail from those that are interested. There can only be one person per school district that is allowed to be elected. So my understanding is, as of right now, the two people whose terms are up will be nominated again, and I'm not aware of any other nominations at this point, but those nominations can still come in. And we do have someone representing Williamsville already on the Erie One BOCES board.
All right, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So moving on, we're to our consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve agenda items 9, minutes, 10, personnel, 11, business and finance, 12, district facilities and support services, 13, exceptional education, special needs and student activities, 14, instruction curriculum, and 15, other business as presented. Dr. Spicer, Ms. Poulin, is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you to the following retirees for their service to the district. Suzanne Askey, nurse, Casey Middle School with 22 years of service. Rhonda Davis, occupational therapist assistant, Dodge Elementary School, 30 years of service. Jacqueline Durinka, Transit Middle School teacher with 13 years of service. Julie Johnson, teacher, North High School with 31 years of service. Jill Kubita, teacher, Country Parkway Elementary School with 38 years of service. Kathleen Ottaviano, teacher, Transit Middle School with 28 years of service. Mark Percy, teacher, North High School with 34 years of service. Benita Rosso, teacher aide, Maple East Elementary School with 40 years of service. Eileen Ryan, teacher, instructional specialist, district office with 25 years of service. And Laura Shenkovsky, teacher, Dodge Elementary School with 29 years of service. Congratulations and thank you to all of our retirees. We are now on item 16A. May I have a motion for the second reading and review of policy updates 5674, data networks and security access, which is renumbered to 5850, and 5851, cybersecurity incident response as presented. Ms. Poulin, Mr. Bulin, is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. And may I have a motion to adopt these policy updates? Ms. Bleckenshire and Dr. Singh, is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Item 16B, may I have a motion for the first reading and review of policy updates 1620, annual organizational meeting, 1640, absentee military and early mail ballots, 7513, medication and personal care items, and 7521, students with life-threatening health conditions and anaphylaxis as presented. Ms. Bleckenshire, Dr. Singh, is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. May I have a motion to postpone these policy updates for the second reading and adoption at the March 10th meeting? Mr. Bulin, Mr. Manna, is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. We are on item 17. Does anyone have a topic to discuss under committee of the whole? Seeing none, there are also no matters to discuss under 18 legislative matters. We are now on item 19A, which is our second public expression. If anyone in the audience would like to speak at this time, please step up to the podium and state your name.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Baroldi.
Okay, 1 minute, Gabrielle, if you don't mind. I'm going to call on our parliamentarian to just review our public expression format, okay? And then you can start.
The same policies from the first public expression apply to the second public expression, except to the overall time limit. If you spoke at the first, the topic must be different. You will have 3 minutes. You'll be queued at 2.5 minutes. Give you time to wind up your talk. Okay.
Tell me whenever my time starts.
It starts
It
right
starts
now.
now.
Okay. Hello, my name is Gabrielle Baroldi, and I am here to discuss the new version of Learning Lab. The new version is a period-by-period program in which there are no Learning Lab teachers. Instead, students are with a randomized volunteer teacher who has signed up to teach Learning Lab during their Learning Lab period. This program, in my opinion, will not work because the Learning Lab teacher needs to know enough about each of the students' classes to teach it to them. What the teachers would have to do is contact the other teachers the student has in order to learn what is being taught in each of the students' classes and then learn the material. So if a student has a math teacher for Learning Lab but needs help with science, that teacher will not be able to give them the help they need during that Learning Lab period. Even if the math teacher learned about that student's science work after that period, there may be a different teacher the next time the student has a Learning Lab, and like a Learning Lab class or period. And if that teacher does not happen to be a science teacher or know the material the student needs help to learn and understand, the student will not be able to get the help they need to understand science because of things they have no control over. A student may need to understand the material in their class by a certain time if they have a test, and need to understand the material on the test by the date and time of the test, or have a homework assignment due at a certain time. In the case that the teacher they have during the Learning Lab does not know the subject material yet, they likely could not prepare them. This would not be the student's fault because the student cannot help that after spending the same amount of time participating in class, they need one-on-one help from a teacher who knows the material. I care about Learning Lab because I and many other people in the program need the extra help that we get there to succeed, or it is extremely beneficial. I've learned many things in Learning Lab across all subjects. I firmly believe that no period-by program can replace our current Learning Lab program and give students the same help. I'm worried that the period-by-period program will not be able to be properly staffed by volunteer teachers. I don't know what would happen in the event that during a certain period there are no teachers currently available that have signed up to teach Learning Lab and a student has Learning Lab for that period. I hope by bringing up what I have just now to you that I am making a difference and ensuring that the Learning Lab program could continue to be a program that allows all students to succeed no matter how they learn best, and that all students feel seen within the district. Thank you very much for listening to my speech.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Would anyone else like to speak during our second public expression period? Okay. This concludes our regular board meeting. The next scheduled regular board meeting is March 10th. I would like to wish everyone a restful midwinter recess. And is there a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting? Dr. Spicer, Ms. Fletch, all in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Good night, everyone.